Today I'm going to be reunited with an old friend. Honda's coming out to play again. Last few days we've had quite a bit of rain. I wouldn't say heavy rain, but it's been pretty persistent. And the grass on the land has got out of control, shall we say. And as much as the goats love being in it and create some headway, there's just too much for them at the moment. And of course they haven't got total free reign over the whole farm. So Toon wants to do some washing today. I know, it's big news. So I've got to clear a path for her to the washing line area, and then I'm going to go down the far end of the farm, and I'm basically turning it into a cross between Goat World and Jurassic Park. And I've been sculpting it to create lots of areas for the goats to go in and out and explore, and to make sure that they've got a nice variety of fodder to feed on. The only place that isn't out of control is the bit where the smalls are in at the moment. Currently they're in the bamboo in the far distance, but in between the bamboo and the eucalyptus that we've got growing there and their house, they're keeping that all down to about 3 inches in height, so that's just about perfect. But you can see here a bit of an issue. Yeah, we know the coconut tree is dead. Quite sad, guys, because it's one that Toon's dad planted a long time ago. I don't know whether it's to do with building the height of the soil up so much here, or whether it was just a case of that I think it's a moth that gets in there, or a beetle, and eats from the top. Now, we had earmarked a guy who we've nicknamed Charcoal Man to come here and cut the tree down and have a look at the inside. You know, you can eat the heart of the coconut trees. On this one we're not sure whether it'll be doable or not, because he's got a nice sized chainsaw. We got a chainsaw, but it's like a Toys R Us one, and very rarely even spits into life. We've had it repaired 3 times. It's shocking. And he was supposed to come, but it does seem that he's got a bit of an issue with the Thai tree police. So he's currently being asked questions by them, and he's stopped cutting trees down in the area. So it's going to remain there for a while, and we'll see what happens. Right, I've got to get Honda into life, and then I'll show you what I've been up to afterwards.
Thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for thank you. You need to do the washing now, but now you come back, it's looking a little bit moist coming.
I need to think about where can I dry them now.
I think we'll have to hang them under the roof. Well, it's not a man job, is it? But okay, so the herd's off in the distance. They like to go in the tall stuff when they first get let out, for whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe it's because that the pasture's still a little bit wet in the morning. We'll start off with here. So this is the location that Toon and I first had a go at growing rye. So it's more of a meadow than sort of like full-on pasture, and the goats now have got on top of it, and a mixture of that and me laying down all the old stuff over the first year, it's really paid dividends. And now it's just thick with grasses and a small leaf weed that the goats really like. So they keep this nicely trimmed. They tend to come here mid to late afternoon, I think, when it's all dried out, because it is shorter, it stays wet for a little bit longer. It's very thick, it's quite dense down there as well, and you can't see the soil behind that. So where you see that mound over there with the tree and this mound here, that's sort of like a transitional area between this thick meadow type area and the big grasses at the back. Now, the goats were going in there, but not all of them liked it. So once they had sort of like eaten their favourites, I got in there and I trimmed the worst of it down. And then in the distance, we've got the real thick grasses, and there's certain areas in there that the herd can't get into, or that they don't want to go in there. So I've been cutting little pathways in there. So we'll go round and we'll have a butcher's. Are you staying with Sky Yabby, or are you coming with me, mate? You two boys hanging out there, yeah? On the outside of the top road around the lake, we tend to get this sort of weed growing quite a bit, and the goats don't like this unless we cut it. And they don't eat the new growth, they eat the old growth. Once it starts to dry out and turns a bit crispy, then they eat that. So from time to time I do trim this down in the main pasture area, but it is on my to-do list. You'll see down there I've cut some of it down along with this grass here, which is the grass roof grass, the ones that the locals make the grass roofs out of. We do let one of our friends, it's the lady who does the somtam in the village, Toon's closest friend, we do let her, when she asks, to come down and cut it for a day or two, just when she's got a little project to do at home. It's not like it was a full-blown business or anything. If someone wanted to come and take the whole lot out, then yeah, but generally speaking, people just keep on driving round until they find this particular grass and then cut it for free. Most farmers don't want it on the land, obviously, because they're growing a crop, and the root system, it's a real pig to get rid of. Now, we don't particularly want to get rid of it, but we do want to control it, mainly because the goats aren't that fussed on it. But at certain times of the year, when you cut it, they like the new growth. So for someone to come in, and even if they were just going to tip it, then yeah, the goats will get on it after that. Not all of them, but some of them do. And it may well be to do with what their stomach needs. You know, it's telling them, no, we need some really fibrous stuff inside us, not something soft leaf and high in protein, and it's, you know, it just rips through them like a Porsche. So, you know, sometimes they'll want something woody, something brown, something fibrous, so they have that option if they need it. There'll also be some brown stuff from the old grass in there, and when they take a bite, you know, inevitably they'll take a few mouthfuls of that as well. So it's a good healthy balance that we're trying to create in the pasture, and I think it's working quite well. We have had three upset stomachs this week, but that's to do with the rain and new flush of grass. You know, it's super fresh, and you know, some particular grasses, a few of the goats are crazy about, and they'll just stand there and eat that all day. It's hard to get them off it. Come on, Yabby, you need to follow me, mate. Sky, come on, mate. Yes, mate. So we've got our little path down here, which doubles up as our main weeping dam. So there's water on the left hand side there, although you can't see it. Not so much there. We had a spare bamboo plant we put in here about 6 months ago, and it's still surviving. All right, mate, you come in. Sky, come on, mate. It's like an adventure. Whatever. You keep up or you get left behind. It's your call, mate. All right, you know your mum's not coming. She don't care. She got her food now. He's a bit of a drama queen, that boy. He'll be along soon, I'm sure. If not, he just has a sleep on the road. As we come into the main part of the pasture here, this grass still maintains the most important grass that we got on the farm, because it keeps producing all year round, and you can see it's quite woody now, but it's producing, and the goats like to pick on this through the dry season, but also when the pasture is very, very wet. Then they can just come along and eat at their head height or a little bit higher. It does take a little bit for them to get full, because there's only small mouthfuls of that. But what happens is, as they're walking through it, of course, they trample it down. So you can see here, you know, and as it goes down, then it will root, and then all these separate bits will start sprouting once they take hold. So it is almost like a living mulch. You can see there's a few other bits and bobs that they eat in here as well. But where there's slightly less traffic, you can see, so you can't see the soil. It's very spongy underneath, and that's not the soil being soft. That's just all this grass being continually laid down. So it shoots up, they eat most of it, and the bit that gets a bit woody, they pick on it and trample it down. Here's a little outcrop of the grass that they use for roofing. So I will come and trim this down, and then it gives them something else to eat. I've very roughly trimmed through here, and mainly because it was of this weed. I say, because they're not really that bothered about it, get it out the way. And whenever you, let's say we're chopping and dropping, like you can see there, another couple of days they'll start eating that when it goes all brown. Yeah, chopping and dropping. Now some of you will know this because you're far cleverer than me, but I never knew chopping and dropping doesn't have a positive effect by the matter that you're dropping on top of the soil surface. So, you know, you're mulching, of course, and it's introducing nutrients back into the ground. But it's what's going on underneath the ground that I was totally unaware of. It creates a chain reaction when you cut most plants and grasses. It really mirrors what's going on top of the ground. So that release of goodness that's dropping onto the soil, that goodness is also released when you cut via the root systems. So it's a double whammy. So you're fixing the soil from above and below at the same time. Plus they're pooing and peeing, of course, as they're going along. I never knew that. What's become quite clear is when you're out with the goats and watching them, in regards to the pasture, if it's very, very dense, then your herd will stay tighter together because they haven't got that direct line of sight if they get too much space in between each other. So you'll get them moving around en masse. But if you look now that it's started to be opened out in here, they're nicely spaced out. They've all got their own area for eating. They're relaxed, and this is when they can really eat effectively. Well, this is what I've noticed, because when they get closer together as a herd, they become very competitive, and it's almost like a race. It's a bit like wacky races, but they're all trying to get to the front and take a mouthful of the fresh stuff before it's getting trampled and you know, soiled on, basically. So it's not very effective or efficient for a herd to eat when they're like that. You want them all nice and spaced out, all nice and calm, and their heads down, just noshing away. You can see the space in there. That's brilliant. But every now and again you'll just see them raise their heads, and as long as they can see a couple of others, then they're all right. Whereas I suppose the exception to the rule here is oh god, I nearly forgot her name. Outrageous. Slim. It's because she's not Slim anymore. Oh, there's a snake there. Whoa. Come on, Slim. Snake in the middle of us. Slim, come on, girl. Slim, come on. That's a big black one. It's just gone to the right. Slim, come on. Slim. Come on, girl. There it is. It's just got its head sticking up. I can't recognise that. I know a lot of you guys are into your snakes, so you might be able to tell me what that is. I'm not. It's going back into the thick stuff. Another reason I'm taking the thick areas of grass down or reducing it is so that we can see through from the house. Now, although I'm fully aware on the videos that our land looks humongous, it really is not. And if it's too thick though, we can't see from our lounge window all the way back here. So, you know, if we're like, oh, I can't see the herd, you know, I mean, through there you can see the farmhouse there. Before that is obviously the goat house. And sometimes you just want a quick check. You don't want to always having to be coming out here. So we like to have like a clear path all the way through. What we don't want to do though is chop the whole lot down. Some of you guys have said in the past, well, why don't you just get a tractor driver in and just cut the whole lot down? Tractor drivers don't like our land around here. Now what you see on the floor here is old cassava, because the guy that rents the land next to us, he grows cassava, and when they put the new plants in, all the surplus bits or the bits that aren't any good, they're normally just discarded or burnt, totally wasted. So I just grabbed hold of them off the road and threw them in here. I mean, look at this mulch, it's just glorious. That is just fantastic. which is brilliant because we get the flood water coming from his land, and it's a great sponge. This was just thick weed right here, which the goats aren't that keen on. So now you can see a little bit of grass just starting to come through here. So I dare say, you know, a few more sessions strimming in here, then the grasses will really take hold. I mean, you can see here now, there wasn't any grass in here before. Now this is something that's never made much sense to me. So you got your goats and they like grass. You've got a parcel of land and they're on it, but there's hardly any grass there, and yet there's loads of weeds, and a lot of the weeds they don't eat. So they leave the weeds and they eat the grass, and yet the grasses take over. How does that work? Is it because when they bite the top off, it stimulates root growth? I don't know. But a lot of the grasses don't have a chance to go to seed. So I don't know, it's a weird one, that. So really, all I'm doing is, by cutting some of the weeds down now and again, I'm just speeding up the process of the grasses sort of like running through the whole land and choking all that other stuff out. I don't try and kill the weeds, because the weeds are the pioneers, aren't they? When you've damaged your soil over the years, and you've got compaction and all those sorts of nasty things, your weeds are your pioneers to sort your soil out. I'm watching you like a hawk, mate. Yes. No, you don't have to shake your head, mate. I know what you were going to do. And you don't have to wee in front of me either. That does not impress me. Behave yourself. He just thinks he can leave the farm whenever he likes, but actually no, he's not in charge as much as he thinks he is. You can see in between his horns he's been working the eucalyptus scratching poles, I've called them. Hang on, he's standing on my flip-flop. Can I have my foot back? It's still one of my regrets, putting so many eucalyptus on our land. Well, I'm not saying any at all. Hang on a minute, he's trying to nosh me off. Back off, mate, it's a bit early. Yeah, I would have liked just a couple of 100 trees, might have been adequate for our building needs. But no, we're stuck with a couple of thousand. But Bullseye's getting through them. Oi! Oi! I don't think so, fella. Go on, mate. Jog on. He just made me spill my coffee over myself, so he's had the last laugh. Bullseye won't destroy all of these eucalyptus, so as we cut them down for selling, normally what happens, you keep sort of like about 3 or 4 new bits of growth, and then you grow them for the next year. With us just keeping on letting the herd out here, they'll eat the new growth, so they won't really spring it back into life for very long, and then they'll just rot down where they are, so it'll open up the ground even more with the root systems. So you know, it was looking like a long-term crop for us, but we don't mind, because really we've got enough planted elsewhere in the land that the goats don't have access to those, so it's more than enough eucalyptus for us, and this land is far more valuable to us as pasture for the goats. But what we would like to do, but again the rains aren't here properly, we would like to grow different types of trees all dotted around in here, but of course we will have to protect each tree until they're well up out of the ground. And it does depend on which tree as well. If you haven't got many trees in the area, then depending on what sort of tree it is, if it was something like a mango or leucaena, not leucaena, what I'm talking about, moringa, then they would just strip it and kill it. So not all trees will be suitable. Maybe we'll put a few long-term trees in here, like the teak. Yeah, I think it's called mysack. Takes many years to grow. It is worth a fortune, but it's not so much what it's worth, it's leaving like a hardwood tree that could grow for so many generations, and just leave something positive on the land, and hopefully whoever we leave the land to in the future will be of the same sort of ilk and not just come and run a chainsaw through them, and you know, create a lovely sort of like balanced environment for this sort of farming. I'd love us to be able to hand this land over when the time comes, and hand it over to someone that has got the same sort of, I don't know, maybe call it values, or same sort of thoughts and love for farming as we do. Someone that wants to just, you know, just do this sort of thing rather than strip everything out, and corn, rice, cassava are about the only things that this land was fit for when we first moved onto the land. This is one particular area that I'm not going to clear much more. A little bit here I'm going to take right down, but that's it. I'm leaving all this stuff here. Now I normally clear these little mountains, or Toon calls them islands, but in here is the scariest hunting lodge ever created, and it's Toon's nephew Leigh. So when he's out hunting at night, in there is his hideout, and he doesn't like shoot from there or anything. When these guys are out hunting, say rats, you know, they'll put the traps out last light, and it's not worth them going home. They'll pretty much stay on the land or nearby, and so he'll come here for an hour's kip, and then go out and check all the traps, and then each time he goes back there, if he's a bit itchy, mosquitoes, sometimes he'll actually prepare, you know, clean and prepare the rats. He also likes to keep an eye on other people that are out hunting at night. So when you get heavy rains, and the frogs, and particularly the big the chubby frogs, bullfrogs, or the painted Asian frogs, because they're worth a lot of money. You know, you can hear them, you know, as they're calling each other, they're expanding, and it's quite a distinct noise, and you can find them quite easy. You just follow the noise, and there they are. They tend not to run away or jump away. So it would be, I dare say, tempting for someone if we had frogs that were croaking right next to the fence. Not on about the small frogs, they're everywhere anyway. So he likes to make sure that there's no one on the land. You're eating well, Yabby, ain't you? You carry on, mate. Get it down, you. I'm not sure if you can hear it on the microphone, but that's one of those takata, takata. I think one of you guys was saying it's a lapwing, a red lapwing or something like that. Right, this bit here, this was the worst area on the whole of the pasture. And even less than a year ago, we had that Mimosa pudica, I think it is, which is the sensitive plant. It was pretty rampant around here. Now that is potentially lethal to goats, and they're not quite as susceptible to it as cattle and what else, sheep, but you do have to be careful with it. I've just found a little bit here, little outbreak. Some people call it the sensitive plant. Not you, mate. He's not bothered about it. Not all the goats like it. So what I did when I was researching it, because I thought, oh, I've got to bloody take it all out. You can't spray it because it closes its leaves up, and you can't burn it because it stimulates growth. You can't dig it out. The only thing you can do is pull it out by hand when you've had a lot of rain, and you can just pull the root system out. But you leave a little bit in there, and of course it springs back into life. Now what I did discover about it is it does have a quality in that it's a natural parasite killer. So I mean, they even make it into capsule form for us humans now. So if they have a small amount of it, they might think, well, that's probably a good thing. They just can't have a lot of it. So I started letting the goats on here, but in a controlled manner. What I mean is I'd let them loose on it, but I'd only let them in here for about 20 minutes or so, and then push them out again. And now, so this was full of it. It was full of it, but it is just about gone. I can't see another patch. Those first two patches that I just showed you. Yeah, still a couple of bald patches here and there, but the mimosa bail out. It's done one. I really thought it was looking like, oh, there's a tiny bit there. It was looking like I was going to have to tarp a certain area, because I got an email from Gordon Tickle, which I know some of you guys follow, and he was asking about, you know, how to get rid of it. And so, well, if it was me, I'd tarp it, and while it's being tarped, I'd put holes in the tarp and plant, you know, napier grass, which fixes your soil at the same time. So I thought I was going to have to do my own advice, but it looks like the herd have sorted it. You can see they've browsed it right down. So although you can see the soil a little bit, the grass is coming through now. I think once you see that, you're on the right path. Don't act like it's all you, Bullseye. You can't take the credit for all that. Don't even go near the fence, mate. Bullseye! Oi! Thankfully, the rat population has dwindled considerably in the past year and a half. And I think that's as the land's getting gradually cleared more and more. It's becoming less wild. I think that's something to do with it, but also with Leigh being around as well and him trapping the rats. That's good. And I think with the surrounding farm areas struggling the past couple of years, certainly with their cassava, there hasn't been that ready food source available to the rat population. Normally, you see a lot of damage caused by rats in corn and in cassava, but because the crops haven't been doing very well around here recently, I think it's knocked the rat numbers down a lot. I think that's why the price of wild rat has gone up a lot. Now, of course, the less rats we have, then the less snakes we have. The only thing is we've got so many frogs on the land now, and snakes eat frogs, so, well, the majority of them do around here. 6 of one and half a dozen of another, isn't it? And since I've been out today, I know I've seen one snake, but I haven't seen one hole for the rats. But in the islands where we've got all the long grass, there'll be a few in there, I dare say. Leigh will get them eventually. A couple of things that you guys have been asking over the last month or two about the water monitor lizards and the pythons. Last python sighting was well over 6 months ago, and it was outside of our fencing on the boundary. Leigh saw that at night, and you know, it was similar to the size of the one that got away, that had our last big goose. As far as the water monitor lizards go, about a year for on the land, and that was about 100 yards that way. There's a couple of big boulders, and looks like they were hiding in there. That was, I don't know, well, I suppose half size, maybe not even that. And then I saw an even smaller one in the lake about 6 months ago. So it's great. We're just not seeing those big animals on the farm very often now. And I think it is the goat traffic, as well as keeping everything trimmed down. Well, not everything, but we're getting there. But just the land being busy every single day now. Of course, we've got the dogs as well, so when we put the goats away at night, once they go onto the island, we'll leave the gate open to the pasture, and the first thing the dogs do is go running into here. Sometimes you hear a bit of barking. Last night we did, and we've got a cat that keeps hanging around now. We seem to have inherited a cat. Still have to be careful with these little chaps, but other than that, all good, isn't it, Yabby? I know it's not quite the same as walking out onto a nicely manicured lawn, and you know, you're in back garden and sitting down for gin and tonics or whatever, but it seems sort of like quite user friendly out here now. And yeah, I'm sure there's still a few nasty things here and there, but on the whole, it's a lot safer than it used to be. That's my impression. Don't eat ants, mate. That won't go well. You'll learn, won't you? Come on, Sky, mate. Keep up. Go see your mum, eh? Brilliant. No more muddy fields and no more parched ground. It'll be interesting to see the next dry season, you know. So I mean, I think if we can get a proper rainy season this year, next dry season, you know, the level of fodder that's available for the goats to eat, it should be a lot higher than what it has been. So yeah, we're still trying to work out, you know, what head of goat we can run here, but you know, I think as the number increases on the herd, so the amount of fodder increases as well. And now we're actually implementing a bit of a fodder system, which we'll cover soon. I think there's a lot of scope really for I thought that was another snake. Yeah, I think there's a lot of scope to run quite a sizable head of goat on the land. Who's in there? Is that you, Shrek? Who's that? It's normally Shrek that goes in there. Fearless buckling. Who's that? Miss Good. It's you, innit? Silly girl. Bless him. Sky's mum's giving him the hard love. What I mean by that is, she's like, "Go on, mate, get off the udder and start doing a goat's job, which is eating all this green stuff." So yeah, she keeps kicking him away, but she'll let him have some. But she's making him eat, so she's a good mum. Right then, behind me is the tall grass stronghold. This isn't the grass that they make the roofs out of. It's almost like a bamboo. The outside of it I've took right down, but you can see now. Now the goats do eat this, but not while it's on pasture, or they eat very little of it unless I cut it down and they get the new growth. But here's the crazy thing: if we came and cut this and then put it in a hanging basket outside or inside the goat house, they would then eat it. So they got the favourites out here. When a goat hasn't got its favourite, and I dare say other grazing or browsing animals can't get the favourites, then they'll make do with what they got, like we do. But you can see that is pretty rough stuff, and that's why I don't use like a nylon cord or string on our strimmer or bushwhacker. I'll show you later on the knife that I've got attached to it, and it's the same knife that I've been using for about 1.5 years now, and I've not had to sharpen it. It is a beast. And it hasn't always been like that, you know. I was changing blades sort of once every couple of weeks or so. We've also tried the big discs for cutting grass, but you're not just cutting grass out here, that's the problem, and you just blunt those discs straight away. When we were going off site and cutting extra grass for the goats before this pasture really started to take hold, then yeah, we used a disc, and it's great for gathering, it's cutting and also laying down the grass in a nice neat pile for me and Toon to collect. So it's good for that sort of thing. But when you've got a mixture of undergrowth and different types of grasses, then you've got to have something a bit more meaty. So I'll show you that when I get back, because yeah, they are a little bit more expensive, but I was sharpening and replacing blades like God knows what, and now 1.5 years, no sharpening. It's never got bent out of shape. It's the daddy. One thing that a lot of experienced goat farmers will tell you, and it's something that I picked up at a very early part of goat farming: don't let all your pasture, your fodder, get really close to the ground, because your parasite situation will become pretty horrific, certainly in a tropical climate. So even when it's damp and you got, you know, tall fodder, your parasites, you know, they'll be a few inches off the floor. So if you've got nothing tall for the goats to eat, it'd be bloody. Well, I mean, we worm ours, you know, very often. It's quite a tightly controlled schedule, but you know, I'm pretty sure you'd be doing it every flipping week, and then the effectiveness, I dare say, might start to decrease, and you have to up the amount of medication that you're giving them. So no, it's one of those things, you know, out here and obviously in a lot of other countries that have snakes. You know, I mean, we're blessed, we haven't got bloody dingoes and coyotes and, you know, mountain lions and what other sorts of things. There's also, I've seen some horrific stuff. Yeah, we have, you know, soy dogs, village dogs and that sort of stuff, but you know, there's no sort of like pack animals and that sort of thing that we have to contend with. But yes, snakes is something that not just the goats have to be aware of, but us and anyone else that, you know, comes onto the farm. For as long as I can remember, whoever farmed this land, they were always battling against these grasses down here, and they never won. The root system, as well as being wiry, I think it goes down quite far. And you know, it's been sprayed, it's been ploughed, it's been burnt, it's had the whole lot. What it hasn't had, which I think would work, is to sheep mulch it. I think if we were gonna, you know, do conventional farming, that's what I would do. I'd tarp it for a year. I'd trim it all down to get it nice and flat, probably plough it, and then I'll tarp the whole area. But that's not our bag. But you can see it, it's this is the stuff that's like bamboo. Amazing. So rather than get the whole lot, what I've been doing recently is just going around each stronghold area and taking out the finer stuff. So when I say the finer stuff, just the extremities, and creating a little bit of an island. And then each time I come and trim, I'll just make the island smaller and smaller until we've got something that's quite manageable. And then you can see, as I've been doing it, the other stuff has started to creep in there. Otherwise the opposite happens and the grasses generally come out further and further this way. So that's the idea. But let's try and find a little area that they've started to use, because the goats won't go in there. So, well, you can see the bloody snake. Well, you might have seen the snake. Yeah, they prefer to be in an open area and put their heads into fodder rather than actually standing in the fodder. You're still keeping up, aren't you, Abby? Good lad. So here you can see our pioneer goat Slim, she's off again. Now they come in here, whereas before they wouldn't. So it's ready for another haircut. I'll just take the sides off here and the other side where she is there, and then they'll go into that centre bit, which they weren't going into before. So I don't know the size, but it was a hefty old area that they weren't feeding on. So I just thought that would make the most sense. So we're still getting the benefits of the root systems and chopping and dropping from the tall grasses. I dare say some wildlife like it. We get a lot of birds in there. We've also had the Nukbed Nam, which is a wild duck. Came across a nest with eggs in there. We get the Nukum, which is like a little wild, very slightly smaller bird than our quail. So they make a lovely noise, like a woo 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 woo, and yeah, a lot of locals like to try and catch them. So now we've got these, I'm going to say small, but they're quite large. Four islands of the tall grass on the left hand side, but you can see all the way down to the lake, and even through the eucalyptus we can quite clearly see the farmhouse. So now we can just turn the camera around. Directly behind you is the farmhouse. You see all the way through to next door. One of your regular viewers asked a question on the video where we're eating the water snails with Fred, our Belgium friend who visited us, and we had a little lads ride out, and in the footage you can see there was about 4 or 5 women on the road next to where our younger goats are. Like, aren't you worried that, you know, someone will just reach over and grab a goat? And I know it does happen, and not just in Thailand of course, but yeah, the Facebook groups that we're on about goat farming in Thailand, yeah, people have had young goats nabbed. We know everyone. What Toon normally does though, in case it's like a farm team that comes and puts cassava in for a farmer, they might come from another village, so if we can't tell from the house who they are, we just go out there and either introduce ourselves or Toon does, have a quick chat, or just let them know that we're looking, and she'll ask the farmer who's that lot. There's no problem at all. What we've got now, which is really nice, is there's so many people in the village that like to bring their kids and their grandkids here, and they even bring food for the goats, and they'll just stand there feeding the baby goats. Well, they're not babies anymore, but I suppose they're adolescent goats. That's brilliant. I mean, it saves us a job, but it's lovely. It is really cool to see the kids. They're just, well, kids and young goats is match made in heaven, isn't it? It's quality. Everyone appears to be content. I'm not a goat, but that's the vibe I'm picking up on. You like your soft leafed weeds, don't you, Geraldine, eh? Now you've lost a tooth. She'll still try and have the corn if you got some though. Over various videos where we've been coming out showing the pasture, and some of you have mentioned where you should get yourself a bloody ride-on lawnmower, Leigh. For certain areas of the farm, that is a valid point. I like the idea of collecting as you mow, and then just tipping it out into like a fodder box for the goats, certainly when it's bad weather and they can't get outside. But I would say for, I don't know, to guess, I don't know, probably 60-70% of the land, it's got to be done by a weed whacker. There's just so many rocks, and you know, I'm pretty sure you'd just trash a ride-on lawnmower if you try to bring it in this sort of terrain. I can come out here, I can get pretty close to the goats, obviously not too close with the spinning blade, but yeah, they've got used to me now being out with them and with Honda. I suppose with Honda being a 4-stroke, it's not that loud, but yeah, they're pretty relaxed with me, and it goes quite well. So a tank of petrol will probably give me an hour strimming, and I'm ready for a break then anyway, depending on how hot it is. So I'll have a walk around with them first. Once they've settled down into an area, I'll do my strimming, and then probably have another half an hour with them and then head back. What's really exciting, I think, is like we've only got about another 5.5 years, if we've done everything right, for the land to become rehydrated. So the experts reckon it takes 7 years if you do everything right. So once you've got your land set up and you start working with nature, depending on, you know, your average weather over those 7 years, then the water table recovers to what it should be for your land. So even if we've done a few things too slowly, or we've done a few things not quite right, you know, maybe we've got another 7 years. We've been going 1.5 years, but yeah, it should get better and better year upon year. Certainly as these long grasses with their long root systems continue to bring up the nutrients that are locked well below the surface of the soil, and they make them available for the shallow rooted vegetation that's on the land. But yeah, it should be something that's very interesting and hopefully beneficial for the land and beneficial for the livestock as well. It's all good. Also, once I've done my world record attempt with the biochar comb pit, We'll be then even introducing biochar all over the land on a large scale. So it should be a ever evolving and improving environment here. Really looking forward to setting up individual cells on the land as well, and start rotating the herd around those, and that'll be another, you know, improvement on the land, being able to rotate the animals and helping us to grow on the fodder in a bit more of a controlled manner, rather than just letting them go everywhere for the whole day. So that should take it another notch or two, I think, as well. Again, that can have a positive impact on the number of goats you can have, or even the more room they have, even if you don't increase the size of your herd, just to give them more room and more than enough food. I think you're looking at something that's going to be very, very beneficial for a herd, no matter what the size.